Blackmagic just announced DaVinci Resolve 21 with some wild updates. And in this video, we're going to talk about all these changes and upgrades, and I'm going to tell you about the best new features that you are going to be the most excited about as a video editor. So let's get into it. Now, when Blackmagic first started talking about these updates to DaVinci Resolve, they said that they were planning on it being more of a bug fix year. More of a year where, hey, there's not as many feature updates, but we made the program smoother and better overall. But then they said that they just started adding new things and then more new things. And then before you know it, it was a very full featured update. And yeah, it's crazy. So right off the bat, we got to talk about the new AI tools, because that's what everybody cares about, right? The AI. We all want to know what cool new AI stuff is going to help us be better as video editors. And the first thing it announced was something called AI IntelliSearch. And this is a feature that Adobe has already had in Premiere Pro, and it's something that I'm so glad to see now available in DaVinci Resolve as well. So with it, you can have Resolve now analyze all of your footage, and it can detect things like people's faces. That way you can tell exactly who is in a scene. It can detect objects. It can detect colors. A wide variety of things can be analyzed by the AI and then cataloged. So if you have, let's say, your dog and you're filming it and you're like, I want to find all the clips of my dog, you can type dog in and it'll bring up all the clips with a dog, which is not super useful if it's only like 10 clips. But if you're working with a very large project, maybe it's a wedding video with 500 plus clips. That's whenever a feature like this AI IntelliSearch can start being really beneficial. Next, and here's where things get really crazy, Blackmagic introduced an AI speech generator where you can literally type some text into a box and it will then generate an audio file of that text being spoken. And you can either use pre-made voices that they offer, or you can create a custom voiceover using an existing audio file. So as long as you have at least 10 seconds of someone speaking, you can take that audio and use it to create an AI voice, which is really crazy and is honestly kind of terrifying because it's something that Adobe actually created almost 10 years ago now. They showed off a feature like this and then they canned it because it was pretty controversial, right? But now with the advent of AI and so much AI voiceover stuff, I think Blackmagic says, hey, we're going to offer it now. To be clear, this voice clone feature is something that was already available in the previous version of DaVinci Resolve, but you literally had to have 5 to 10 minutes of someone speaking, and then you could clone their voice, and then you have to record yourself speaking in the same cadence as them, and then you could turn your voice into their voice. Bit more work. Now, in DaVinci Resolve 21, you literally just type the words that you want and it will be made into someone else's voice, which is wild. Just don't trust anything you see on the internet, okay? Next, keeping on this crazy sci-fi futuristic trend where we're cloning voices and things like that with AI, there's a new feature called AI Cinefocus. And this is very similar to Apple's cinematic mode, or there was a camera back in the day called a Litro light field camera that you could basically record something and then change the focus after the fact. Well, you can now do that in DaVinci Resolve. Kind of. If you already have filmed something that has a very shallow depth of field, you can't remove the shallowness and get more depth. But if you have a very flat video that does not have a shallow depth of field, maybe it's something you filmed with your phone, for example, you can then take that video and add depth of field to it. And from the previews, this looks very easy to do. It's not like you're having to manage multiple layers and create a depth map like you have to do currently in DaVinci Resolve. No, in DaVinci Resolve 21, you can literally just click around and say, hey, I want this person or object to be in focus, blur out the rest of it. And you can control things like the bokeh and the shape and how exactly it looks, which is really crazy. So if you've been filming a lot with a camera that does not have a shallow depth of field and you don't want to spend money on an f1.2 lens, maybe just add your blur in post in DaVinci Resolve. Next, we got to talk about Benjamin Button. Yeah, you remember him, right? Aged in Reverse. He was old and he was young. Yeah, very weird movie with Brad Pitt. Well, they just added that capability to DaVinci Resolve, and you're like, Matt, what the heck are you talking about? Well, there is now an AI face age transformer tool in DaVinci Resolve where you can literally record someone, tell DaVinci Resolve that your clip is of a person, type in their age, and then you can offset the age either older or younger, and it will actually track their face and make them look older or younger, which is crazy. We're talking about adding or removing wrinkles, literally making people look way older or way younger. And this is something that it feels like Marvel had a while ago where they're like, hey, we're de-aging people. And it all this kind of looked weird. Well, now you can de-age people on your computer at home. Look, I know this is weird, okay? But at the same time, I know that there are a lot of clients out there that you may be filming that want to look younger. And you're like, hey, You want to look younger? Yeah, we can do that now. Cool. And then they're going to be really happy. So, viable option for you. Now, keeping on this face warping trend here, there's actually a new tool called an AI face reshaper, which will literally let you adjust people's facial features, make them wider, make them tighter, adjust exactly how they look in DaVinci Resolve. And so Blackmagic said this could be really useful for comedy if you wanted to really exaggerate people's facial features. But also what I think is really interesting is that you can use it to animate still images. So if you're trying to animate some photos for a documentary, you can do the Ken Burns effect where you're slowly having them animate across the screen. But what if they were moving a little bit too? That's kind of intriguing, right? So that is now possible with this AI face reshaper tool in Resolve. We're not done with the faces yet either, by the way. Sorry. There's also an AI blemish removal tool as well. So I think this could be really useful as someone that has to be on camera a lot. The amount of times I've woken up and I'm like, oh, I have terrible acne today. Or wow, I bumped my head and I got a black eye, which has happened before and I had to make up myself. Well, there's now an AI blemish removal tool in Resolve that looks like it's going to work pretty darn well to help minimize facial blemishes. And I think this could be really useful if you have clients that are sensitive about that and they say, hey, can you airbrush me a little bit? Yeah, of course I can. AI can do it in Resolve. What other AI stuff do we got? Well, keeping on that trend of AI IntelliSearch, where Resolve can now analyze your video clips and knows what's in them, there is a new feature where Resolve can actually detect a slate or clapperboard that is visible in the shot. So if you are filming a bigger production and you have a clapper, and so you're doing different takes and different dates and different times, and you want to have that all cataloged, Resolve will actually detect that there is a slate that's being held up in front of the camera. It will generate markers, and it can also read all of the slate data and add it to the metadata of each video clip. So you don't have to do that manually anymore. It'll just work, which I think that is a great time-saving tool that's going to be really, really useful for bigger productions. Now, if there's one thing that I'm really excited about AI being able to improve, it's going to be in the area of sharpening and upscaling things. And I'm very excited to tell you that there's a new ultra sharpen tool in Resolve that they say can make things significantly clearer and can even help you if you have footage that may be unusable and actually make it sharper. So I'm a little skeptical. We're going to have to test this and see how good it is. But if it can save footage that you may have be a little bit too blurry, that could be really exciting. Last but not least, for AI editing tools, there's a feature called AI motion deblur. And as the name implies, if you have a video clip that has a lot of motion blur, maybe you're shaking the camera back and forth like Cloverfield, but your shutter speed is set too low, so everything looks really shaky. It's hard to see what's going on. This motion deblur feature will literally analyze the video file and remove a lot of that motion blur and make it clearer and easier for you to see, which I think is actually really useful considering how many shots I've had over the years that have been blurry. And I'm like, why is that camera shaky there? Now, if I had a bingo card that listed off all the things that I can see Blackmagic adding to DaVinci Resolve this year, I can tell you what wouldn't have been on the list. But now that I see it, it's not surprising at all. Photo editing. Yes, like you would do in Lightroom. Yeah, you can now do that in DaVinci Resolve. They've added a whole photo editing page, and suddenly Lightroom users are like, hold up, what? Capture One users are like, wait, huh? If you are editing videos and photos, you can now do that in the same app? Yes, you can. And feels kind of like DaVinci's gunning for Adobe here a little bit, and I'm glad to see it. I love the competition. This is fantastic. So they've actually added photo editing capabilities for raw files, but also a lot of the DaVinci Resolve magic and power user tools that you would expect are also there. So it's a very interesting fusion, as it were, which we'll talk about fusion here in a little bit, but you're literally looking at color grading tools that you would normally see in Resolve now being capable of being used for photos as well. So right off the bat, I'm sure you're thinking, Matt, could this replace Lightroom? And I have to say, in the previews they were showing, maybe, because there are sliders just like you would expect in Lightroom. It's a very similar interface in some ways to Lightroom, so there's going to be some familiarity there if you're coming from it. But at the same time, you also get all of the color tools you may already expect from Resolve as well. So if you want to color your photos with nodes, you can now do that, which is crazy. There's cropping and reframing. There's a lightbox mode. You can have albums just like you would in Lightroom. And then here's a pro feature. Tethering is supported as well. You can literally just connect your camera into your computer and start shooting photos, and they will be instantly imported into Resolve. There's even multi-user support where multiple people can be editing photos at the same time. So So yes, we're seeing Blackmagic take on Premiere Pro with the edit and cut pages, After Effects with the Fusion page, and now finally Lightroom with the Photos page. All in one app. You don't have to have the whole Adobe suite. They're all right here in one application. Okay, enough talking about photos. Let's talk about videos, specifically with the edit and cut pages. There are some other nice updates here as well, including HTML graphics and Lottie support. So if you want to use HTML graphics and animations, you can now import those and they will work as animations natively in Resolve, which should save people a lot of time. Even better, personally for me, I'm very excited about a spell checker now being included in the edit text tool, which I think was needed for a long time. I know that I've misspelled a lot of stuff. I've seen a lot of misspellings in DaVinci Resolve edited videos. I think that's very useful. And there's also emoji support now too. Finally, I've been waiting on that for a while. There's a amount of times that I've wanted to add emojis to a video clip and haven't been able to. I've had to like get a PNG and import that. Now you can just do it natively and it's great. Let's talk about color now. There's a new multi-master trim manager feature, which is actually pretty sick because if you are working on a timeline and you know you need to have multiple deliverables, maybe you have one version that's going to be standard dynamic range and another one that's going to be HDR. In previous versions of Resolve, you would have to literally create multiple different timelines and be managing all them. But now with this trim manager, you can have one timeline and multiple different versions of the color on that timeline that will keep everything consistent. I think it's going to save people a lot of time. What else do we have? There's a magic mask render in place feature now where you can literally cache a magic mask, which will make working with magic masks a lot easier, I think. Here's a weird one. Do you wish that you could use layers instead of nodes? Yeah, I know that's a little weird, right? Especially if you're already in the node ecosystem, but Resolve knows there's a lot of people that are intimidated by that. So they said, hey, what if you could view your nodes as layers? How about that, right? You can now do that, which is really an interesting workaround, and I'm very excited to try this out. Now, let's talk about Fusion because there was some really exciting updates there too. Recently, Blackmagic acquired a company called Crocodile, and what they offer is this library of different presets and tools for Fusion, and they look really, really good. So if you've been wanting more presets to work with, I think this is a fantastic addition to Fusion that's going to save people a lot of time. Speaking of saving people time, there's also now a new feature called audio-driven Fusion animation, which as the name implies, whenever they showed this, I was like, oh, this is so cool. So you can literally have your animation sync up now with an audio file very quickly and easily. What about Fairlight? Did we get any Fairlight updates? Yes. You can now add audio tracks to folders, which is nice. It can make your timeline look a lot cleaner whenever you're working with a lot of different audio tracks. I think that's really useful, but otherwise it was little stuff like a 6-band clip EQ and an EQ level matcher and chain effects. There's nothing really big for Fairlight otherwise, but there's a reason for that. And the reason is that Blackmagic also introduced an entirely separate app today called Fairlight Live. And as the name implies, this is a standalone piece of software that is completely free, by the way, that you can use to control all of your audio inputs if you're running a live video production. So if you are running 20 inputs, 30 inputs, hundreds of inputs, thousands of inputs, you can run all of them through Fairlight Live now and handle all of your mixing and all the controls you would normally expect to see on the Fairlight page now in this separate Fairlight Live app. And I think that's going to be really useful. They said this Fairlight Live feature was also going to be compatible with the ATEM mini switchers that they make. They're going to do a big software update to enable all of them to be compatible as well. Really good stuff there. Next, let's talk about another update that Blackmagic has not been shouting from the rooftops, but one that I'm actually extremely excited about, and that is background rendering support. Yes, finally, if your computer is struggling with playing back your footage, guess what? If you leave Resolve alone for a little bit, it will start background rendering all of your footage to make it smoother and easier for you to play. Heck yeah. In addition, you can also set up proxies for background rendering now. So before you would either have to use the completely separate proxy generator app and have that all set up, or you would have to create proxies in Resolve and it would bring up a box and not let you do anything else until it was done. Well, not any longer. Now it will run in the background, which is so great to see. And in addition, you can also have transcripts generated in the background as well. So if you've been enjoying creating those AI transcripts, you don't have to wait for them to be made. Now they'll be done in the background. As you can see, this is a pretty full-featured update for DaVinci Resolve, and they really went hard on the AI features this year. And at the same time, I feel like Blackmagic was like, hey, what if we just take out Lightroom also? Okay, well, let's see what happens there with that. I personally love to see the competition. I'm very interested in seeing how Adobe responds to this, especially considering that, yes, this is a free update. Wow, right? Isn't that crazy? Yet again, just like last year, Grant Petty, the CEO of Blackmagic, said, hey, we should be charging for this, basically. We may charge for it in the future, but we're not. He said that enough people have been buying the studio version of Resolve to make it worth it for them to still be able to offer it for free, which is great. So if you already own DaVinci Resolve Studio, it's a free update. If you want the free version of DaVinci Resolve, it's still free, which is so great to see. But now there's added features like photo editing and a lot of AI tools. And I'm very interested to test this and see what is available in the free version versus the studio version. So please subscribe if you want to see that. And hey, if you want to download DaVinci Resolve 21, the beta is available today. You can go download it right now and play around with it. That's what I'm going to be doing. And like I said, please subscribe if you want to see more videos about DaVinci Resolve and filmmaking and video editing, because I have a lot of videos that I want to make about this update as well as others. Thanks so much for watching. I will link down in the video description to my edit videos like a pro guide if you want to check that out. Regardless of whether you're editing in DaVinci Resolve or another software, it's going to show you my biggest rules that I follow as a video editor to make and edit better videos. So you can download completely for free in the video description. I wrote it, AI did not write it. Okay, I feel like you have to say that these days. Hope you have a great day. Take care. Bye.